I never thought a simple birthday invitation could change the way I saw the world, or at least the way I trusted it. It all started a few years ago, back when I had just turned 24. I lived alone in a small apartment in a quiet neighborhood in upstate New York, the kind of place where everyone pretends they know each other, but no one actually does. That year, I wasn't expecting anything special. My friends were scattered across the country, college friends, work friends, a few I barely kept in touch with. My only consistent friend, Mike, was supposed to come by with a six-pack and maybe some pizza. That's all. Nothing fancy. I thought it would be a quiet night of us watching old movies and drinking cheap beer. Then, out of nowhere, I got a message on Facebook from someone I didn't immediately recognize. The name was Elliot M., and the profile picture was unsettling. It was a blurred photo of someone standing at the edge of a dark forest, almost like they had been taken with a shaky hand. But the text wasn't threatening at first. It said, "Happy birthday. I know we don't know each other, but I've been watching you. You're invited to a party tonight. Just follow the directions. You'll have fun." My first instinct was to delete it. I mean, who the hell sends that to a stranger? But something about the phrasing, the casual tone, the insistence that I would have fun, made me pause. Maybe I was bored, maybe I was lonely. I didn't know, but somewhere deep down, curiosity got the better of me. I clicked the link attached to the message. It wasn't a website exactly. It was a Google Maps location in the middle of the woods, far enough from town that even my GPS hesitated before acknowledging it. I laughed nervously. A birthday in the woods? Sure, why not? I muttered to myself. I called Mike, planning to tell him the story as a joke, but he didn't answer. He was probably busy. By the time I grabbed my coat and headed out, it was already getting dark. The air smelled of rain and moss, and the sky was a bruised shade of purple. I felt like I was walking into a dream, or a nightmare. The path to the location was narrow, overgrown, and it seemed like no one had been there in years. My heart started racing when I noticed faint footprints in the mud, too small to be human, or maybe too irregular, like someone had been hopping. Every sound in the forest seemed amplified, the snapping of twigs, the distant hoot of an owl, the whisper of the wind through the trees. And then, out of nowhere, I saw it. A small cabin, the kind you see in horror movies, lights flickering inside like candles. Smoke curled from a crooked chimney, and the smell of something sweet and rotting drifted in the air. I swore I could hear laughter. I hesitated at the edge of the clearing. My phone had no signal. I could have turned back, run even, but the curiosity was unbearable. I approached slowly, telling myself it was probably some crazy birthday prank. When I reached the door, it creaked open before I even touched it. Inside, the cabin was decorated like a bizarre party scene. Streamers hung from the ceiling, but they were tattered and dusty. Balloons floated lazily, some deflated, some filled with a faintly glowing substance I couldn't identify. A table was set up with a cake, candles burning, but the icing was grayish and looked more like ash than sugar. And then I heard it. A voice behind me, calm, almost whispering, "Happy birthday. We've been waiting for you." I spun around, but no one was there. I laughed nervously, forcing myself to step inside. The door slammed shut behind me. That's when the party really began. Figures emerged from the shadows, not fully human. They wore party hats and formal clothes, but their faces were wrong. Too long, too wide, like someone had stretched them in a grotesque caricature. Their smiles were too wide, teeth too sharp. They moved toward me in perfect synchronization, but with an unnatural fluidity, like marionettes. My first thought was to run, but my legs felt like they were stuck in quicksand. I realized too late that the footprints outside weren't human. They were mine, repeated over and over as if the forest itself had been mocking me. The birthday cake, horrifyingly, began to float in the air. It spun slowly above the table, dripping black liquid. The figures clapped and sang a twisted version of Happy Birthday, each word dragging out like a growl. I could feel my sanity slipping, my mind screaming for me to escape. But every exit I tried led me right back to the cabin. It was as if the forest had folded in on itself, trapping me in a loop I couldn't break. I shouted, begged, tried to bargain with the shadows, but they only laughed, a sound that cut through my chest and made my ribcage feel hollow. Hours, or maybe minutes passed, I couldn't tell. Time had no meaning here. The figures came closer, their whispers like fingernails scraping on glass. They asked me questions about my life, my regrets, the things I had hidden from everyone. Every lie I told made them angrier, every truth made them smile wider. And then, just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, the lights in the cabin went out. Absolute darkness. And then a single whisper. You invited yourself. Everything stopped. The cake fell to the floor, shattering, and the figures froze mid-step. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Slowly, a small light flickered, and I saw the first figure more clearly. A young man, maybe in his mid-20s, wearing a birthday crown, smiling at me. You shouldn't have come alone, he said. Birthdays are not for strangers. And that's when I noticed the photos on the wall. Pictures of me. Every birthday I had ever celebrated, every party I had ever attended, every single moment I had ever posted online. They were all here. All of them. Panic overtook me. I ran toward the door, yanking at the handle. It opened, but not to the forest. It opened to my own apartment. I blinked. Everything looked normal, except the calendar on my wall was wrong. Today was my birthday, but not this year. Not the right date. And there on my table was a small envelope. Inside was a birthday card, handwritten. See you next year. Don't forget. My blood ran cold. I dropped it. I wanted to call Mike, but my phone was dead. When I looked outside, the streets were empty, silent, and snow was falling, though it had been a warm night earlier. I haven't gone near the forest since that night. I haven't received any messages from Elliot M., or maybe I just ignore them. But every birthday I feel it. A presence. A watching. A subtle whisper in the back of my mind reminding me that the invitation is never really over. That cabin, those figures, the cake, they're waiting. And they always will be. The worst part? Last year on my 28th birthday, I opened my mailbox to find a small package. A deflated balloon, gray and sticky, with a single candle taped to it. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. I put it back in the box, locked the mailbox, and walked away. But late that night, I could have sworn I heard the sound of footsteps outside my window. And when I looked out, nothing was there, except a shadow moving slowly across my yard and the faint glimmer of a party hat in the darkness. I tell people this story, but most laugh. It's just your imagination, they say. But you don't understand. The invitation doesn't end, not really. And every birthday I wonder if tonight might be the night they finally decide I've had enough waiting. I've always hated birthdays. Not because I don't like celebrating, but because of what happened on my 21st. It's a story I've barely told anyone, and even now, recounting it makes my hands shake. Back then, I was living in Boston, sharing a small apartment with two roommates, Claire and Jeremy. They were amazing, supportive, and genuinely wanted to make my birthday special. I thought it would be fun. Just a small gathering, pizza, drinks, maybe a few games. Nothing fancy. That night, the city was alive with neon lights, the sound of traffic humming in the background as I settled into my usual routine of late-night studying. Everything seemed normal until an hour before the party started. I was scrolling through my phone when I received a message from an unknown number. It simply said, "I'll be there. Don't worry, I know your favorite cake flavor." I frowned. My number wasn't public, and the timing was strange. I tried to brush it off as a wrong number, but then it sent another message. "I'm bringing something special. Don't be scared." That made my stomach churn. The number seemed local, but I didn't recognize it, and when I tried to call back, there was no answer. I shrugged it off. Maybe it was a friend playing a prank. By the time guests arrived, the apartment was buzzing with laughter. Claire had baked a chocolate raspberry cake, Jeremy had hung up streamers, and I was genuinely touched. People were joking, singing, and I felt safe. Then the doorbell rang. At first, I assumed it was a late guest. I opened the door, and there was a man standing there. He was tall, thin, with dark hair falling over his eyes and a suit that looked too formal for a casual birthday gathering. He smiled, a polite, almost charming smile. But there was something in his eyes that made my skin crawl, like he was looking through me, seeing parts of myself I didn't even know existed. Can I help you?" I asked. "Happy birthday," he said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. I heard this was the party. I wouldn't want to miss it. I glanced around. My roommates and friends hadn't noticed him yet, or maybe they were pretending not to. I wanted to ask him to leave, but before I could, he turned to the cake. Chocolate raspberry. Excellent choice." His voice was soft, almost hypnotic. Everyone laughed awkwardly. I felt embarrassed for being wary. Maybe I was overreacting. The man stayed the entire night, chatting, laughing, even participating in games. But something was off. He never ate, never drank. When people offered him pizza or soda, he smiled and said he was full. He had a habit of leaning too close when talking, staring at people for just a fraction too long. By the end of the night, everyone else left, tired and happy. Claire and Jeremy went to bed, and that's when I realized he hadn't left. "Do you need a ride home?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He shook his head. "No, I'll stay. It's such a lovely night." I laughed nervously. Something about the way he said it, so calm and deliberate, made my stomach turn. I went to my bedroom, locking the door behind me, hoping that would be enough. But I couldn't sleep. There was a faint sound of footsteps outside my door, slow and deliberate, stopping every now and then as if listening. And then a whisper, almost too soft to hear. "It's your birthday. We should celebrate properly." I tried calling Jeremy and Claire, but my phone wouldn't work. The lights flickered, and I could feel a presence in the room with me, moving, shifting. I stayed under the covers, paralyzed with fear, until the sun began to rise. When I finally dared to look up, the room was empty. No sign of the man. I told myself it was a nightmare, that I had imagined it. But then I saw it. A small envelope on my nightstand, sealed with red wax. Inside was a single note, written in elegant script. "Next year, I'll stay longer." The next year, I moved to a different apartment, thinking distance would protect me. But on my 22nd birthday, the same man appeared again. This time, he didn't knock. He simply walked through the unlocked door, smiling that same unnerving smile. He knew things about me no one else could possibly know, secrets I had never told anyone. And every year since, without fail, he comes. Sometimes he shows up at my apartment. Sometimes he's in the crowd at a restaurant. Sometimes he's in a photo of a party I didn't even know anyone took. He's always there, always watching, always smiling. What terrifies me most is that he never speaks about leaving. He never threatens. He doesn't do anything overtly violent. But the feeling of being hunted, of being monitored, grows stronger each year. I've tried to avoid parties, avoid celebrations, even birthdays themselves. But he always finds me, and the more I ignore him, the bolder he becomes. Last year, on my 27th birthday, I celebrated alone in my apartment, lights off, curtains drawn, hoping he wouldn't come. I heard nothing at first. Then, at exactly 11:59 p.m., my doorbell rang. Hesitant, I approached, expecting nothing. When I opened the door, no one was there, but the air smelled faintly of chocolate and raspberries, the scent of my favorite cake. I froze. Then I noticed a small figure standing across the street in the shadows, smiling at me. And I realized with absolute certainty that no matter where I go, he is always nearby, waiting, marking his presence, counting down the days until the next birthday. Some nights I wake up screaming, drenched in sweat, and I swear I see him standing in the corner of my room, watching, silent, patient. I can't explain how he moves, how he appears, or why he chooses birthdays. But I know one thing. He isn't human. Not really. And one day, I suspect, I won't be able to hide from him anymore. So now, every birthday, I live in terror, trapped in a cycle of fear and dread. I've stopped inviting anyone, stopped celebrating, stopped posting anything online. I live in isolation, hoping that one day he will finally grow bored. But deep down, I know that day will never come. He is part of me now, a shadow I can't escape. And every year when the date comes, I hear the whisper of his voice in the dark, promising me that the next year, he will stay even longer. I didn't really celebrate my birthdays as a kid. My parents were always busy, distant, or distracted, and my friends, well, I didn't have many. So when I turned 18, I decided to throw myself a small party at my apartment in Chicago. Just me, a few friends from college, and a little cake. Nothing extravagant. I wanted it to be casual, maybe even forgettable. That was, of course, before the package arrived. It came the day before my birthday. No return address, no label other than my name written in perfect looping script on the top. It was a medium-sized box, wrapped in thick brown paper, with a faint scent of something floral and metallic that I couldn't identify. I was alone when I opened it. Inside was a small wooden box, carved with intricate patterns I didn't recognize. On the lid, a single word was etched: for you. Inside the box, I found a gift, perfectly wrapped in black tissue paper. My heart skipped a beat when I saw it. It was a bracelet, delicate, almost fragile, with tiny charms shaped like objects that seemed familiar. I recognized them immediately. A tiny book, a miniature laptop, a pair of running shoes, a graduation cap. Objects from my life. Each charm represented a memory, a secret I had only ever shared with myself. I froze. No one could possibly know about these things. No one. I tried to dismiss it as coincidence, or maybe some elaborate prank by a friend who knew me too well. But then I noticed a small note inside the box written in the same looping handwriting. I know your story. Wear this tomorrow, and we will celebrate together. The handwriting was flawless, perfect, almost too perfect. I didn't know whether to laugh or panic. On my birthday, I wore the bracelet, thinking maybe the sender just wanted me to feel special. Friends arrived. We ate, drank, laughed. But there was a constant feeling that I wasn't alone. Every time I turned my head, I thought I saw someone standing in the shadows, just beyond the reach of the light. When I asked my friends if they saw anyone, they laughed and said I was imagining things. But the feeling wouldn't go away. Hours into the night, people started leaving, and I found myself alone, exhausted. That's when my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. It's time. Are you ready? My heart stopped. I hadn't responded. I wanted to throw the phone across the room, but I couldn't look away. Another message came immediately. Don't be scared. I've been waiting for you to wear it. Suddenly, I felt a presence behind me. I spun around. No one was there. But the bracelet on my wrist burned, a faint heat rising from the charms. They were vibrating slightly as if alive. I tried to remove it, but it wouldn't come off. No matter how hard I pulled or twisted, it stayed firmly on my wrist. And then I noticed the shadows in my apartment shifting unnaturally, crawling across the walls like living things. A whisper came from the darkness. You invited me by wearing it. Now we begin. I ran to the door, but it was gone. My apartment was still there, but the hallway beyond had disappeared, replaced by a black void. I could hear footsteps approaching, slow, deliberate, echoing like a heartbeat. The shadows grew taller, darker, forming shapes I couldn't comprehend. Faces twisted in anguish, limbs that bent in impossible ways, mouths opening and closing as if trying to speak but producing no sound. I screamed, banging on the walls, but it was no use. Then the whispers became voices calling my name, recounting my memories, my fears, my sins. Each charm on the bracelet seemed to glow as it activated some memory, some secret I had never told anyone. The tiny book charm showed me the worst grades I had ever hidden. The laptop charm revealed my private messages. The running shoes reminded me of every lie I had told to escape someone's judgment. Every memory was exposed, dissected, and displayed before me in vivid detail. And then the figure appeared, tall, draped in shadow, with glowing eyes that seemed to pierce through me. It held its hand out, and I felt an irresistible pull toward it. "You invited me by wearing it," it said again. "But now, it's time to pay." I tried to fight, tried to resist, but the shadows had grown into a mass that held me in place. I realized with horror that the bracelet was not a gift. It was a trap, a binding object designed to make me visible to something that had been watching me for years. I remembered old family stories, urban legends, even dreams I had dismissed as imagination, all of which seemed to converge into this moment. Whatever this was, it had always known me, and I had unknowingly welcomed it into my life. The final twist, the thing that still haunts me to this day, was revealed when I noticed the reflection in my apartment window. I wasn't alone, not even in the reflection. Behind me, countless other faces, people I knew, strangers, children, friends who had disappeared years ago, stared at me with the same hollow, glowing eyes as the shadow figure. And then I understood. This wasn't about my birthday, it was about every birthday. The bracelet had chosen me, marking me as one of many. I was never celebrating alone. I had joined a collection, a gallery of the watched, the trapped, the bound to the unseen. I woke up the next morning, or maybe it was days later, I couldn't tell. My apartment was normal again. The bracelet was gone, my friends were gone, my phone had no messages, and yet something had changed. Every object I looked at, every shadow, every sound carried the weight of that night. I could feel eyes on me, always watching, waiting for the next birthday, for the next gift. Since then, birthdays have been terrifying. I never trust packages, never accept surprises, never even glance at my mailbox. But I know that one day the bracelet, or something like it, will return. And when it does, I won't be alone. There will be shadows, memories, whispers, and faces I can never forget. And just like every birthday before it, that night will come again. And I will have to face it. I never believed in omens or bad luck, but my 25th birthday taught me otherwise. I was living in a small loft in Philadelphia, just me and my cat Milo. That year I didn't expect much, just a quiet night, maybe a couple of friends stopping by, and a small cake I'd baked myself. I had grown used to the quiet life, and birthdays had always felt like obligations rather than celebrations. But that night, something shifted. It began when I was getting ready for the evening. I'd lit a few candles around my apartment, dimming the lights to create a cozy atmosphere. I was staring into the bathroom mirror, brushing my hair, when I thought I saw a movement behind me. I froze, heart thudding. Milo, of course, was nowhere near me. I laughed nervously, telling myself I was imagining things. But then I saw it again. A fleeting figure in the reflection, just beyond the edge of the mirror, standing perfectly still. I spun around, but the bathroom was empty. The evening continued. Friends arrived, laughing, carrying bottles of wine and party snacks. We played games, told stories, and shared memories. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Every time I glanced toward the mirror, I thought I saw that same fleeting figure, always just out of reach, always in my reflection. My friends noticed nothing. Maybe it was just the flickering candlelight, I told myself. After everyone left, I stayed in the living room, cleaning up, trying to calm down. Milo was curled up on the sofa, and I thought about going to bed early. That's when I heard it. A soft, deliberate tap, tap, tap against the bathroom mirror. My stomach dropped. I hadn't touched the mirror, and Milo didn't move. Slowly I approached it, heart pounding, every instinct screaming for me to run. The reflection showed me standing there. But then, subtle at first. The reflection moved differently. It smiled. I didn't. Frozen in terror, I watched as the figure in the mirror stepped forward, not in the same space as me, but from inside the reflection itself. It was a man, tall, dressed in a vintage suit, his eyes dark and unblinking. He held a small birthday cake, a single candle flickering. And then he spoke, his voice a whisper that seemed to echo both inside and outside my head. "Happy birthday, I've been waiting for you." I stumbled back, knocking over a candle. The flame went out. When I looked again, the figure was gone. I tried to convince myself it was a hallucination, stress, or maybe a trick of the light. I locked the bathroom door and tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw the reflection, smiling, moving closer. The next day, I thought it had been a dream. But then I noticed something odd. The small mirror I had kept on my nightstand, the one that reflected part of my living room, was slightly fogged, and when I wiped it, faint fingerprints appeared on the glass, forming the shape of a hand reaching toward me. Panic set in. I threw the mirror into the trash. Weeks passed and I tried to ignore it. But birthdays have a way of marking time, and when my 26th birthday approached, the messages started. At first it was subtle. Notes slipped under my door, small drawings of mirrors, candles, and cakes. They were anonymous, but the handwriting was elegant and deliberate, and always the same phrase: "I'll see you tonight." That night I sat in my living room, lights off, windows closed. I didn't even make a cake. But at exactly midnight I felt it. A cold presence behind me. The shadows in my apartment seemed to stretch unnaturally, forming shapes that shouldn't exist. And then the mirror appeared in the living room. I hadn't moved it, hadn't placed it there, but it was there, standing upright. And inside, the man from the bathroom reflection stared at me, smiling wider than humanly possible. I tried to leave, but my feet were stuck. I screamed and my voice echoed, but the walls absorbed it. The figure raised the cake, lighting a candle that wasn't there before. And he whispered again, "Make a wish. It's your birthday." Terrified, I refused. I turned away, but the reflection followed me. Every surface in the apartment became a mirror. Windows, picture frames, even the black screen of my TV reflected him, always holding the candle, always smiling, always waiting. It wasn't just a reflection anymore. It was real in every sense. I could feel it reaching out, cold and insistent. In a last, desperate attempt, I grabbed a blanket and covered every mirror, every reflective surface. I locked the doors, piled furniture against them, and hid in the bedroom, sobbing. The presence lingered, whispering, pacing, waiting for hours. When the sun rose, everything returned to normal, or at least normal enough for me to convince myself it was over. But the unease remained. Every birthday since, I dream of mirrors. Every reflective surface in the world feels like a door. Every reflection could be him, waiting for the moment I let my guard down. The final revelation came on my 28th birthday. I was visiting a friend in New York, staying in a hotel room. Exhausted, I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Then I noticed the hotel mirror across from me. I hadn't looked into it until now. And there he was, smiling, holding a birthday cake with a single flickering candle. But this time, he didn't just mirror me. He moved closer, reaching toward the glass, and I realized with a sinking heart that the reflection wasn't in the glass. It was in me. From that night on, birthdays are no longer a day of celebration. They are a countdown, a warning. And every year I wake knowing he will find me. And I know deep down that one day I will be entirely reflected, trapped, smiling, holding the candle he gives me each year, waiting for someone else.